Good morning, friends. I just wanted to share a look at a couple decks. These aren't new. They are, they've been around for a while, but they're new to my collection, and they've been decks that I've been working with. And one of them is a deck that I really wanted to get my hands on for a while, and found that it was hard to do. So this is a look at the Druid Animal Oracle and the Druid Plant Oracle, both illustrated by Will Worthington, and the guidebooks written, and I guess the oracle themselves created by Philip and Stephanie carr-gomm. Now, the Druid Animal Oracle is pretty easy to get. I've seen it in many bookstores, and it's available on Amazon. And it is really, it's published in the United States. And there's this version which has the full guidebook, and I'll show you that in a sec. And then there's a smaller package which has like a reduced book, and that is but it's only just a couple dollars cheaper. Now the packages for both of these are very similar. They have these great little sort of pull-out boxes, and then the cards sit in here, and the book sits on top, and then each comes with sort of a spreadsheet. But I think I did throw both of those in the recycling bin because I never used them, and they were just in the way. So the Druid Animal Oracle is available sort of everywhere books are sold, as the commercials used to say. The Druid Plant Oracle is not. It's harder to get in the United States. You can find it on eBay, but if you go on eBay, you'll find that a lot of folks are selling it as an out-of-print deck and charging accordingly for it. It's not out of print, it's just not in print in the United States. So I got this from Amazon UK, and it came really quickly, about a week. I did pay a little bit extra for expedited shipping, but even with that, it was still less expensive than what it was going for on eBay. It's also available on Book Depository, but because Book Depository is in, or based out of Australia, it takes a lot longer to arrive. So if you're in the United States, probably amazon.uk. Amazon.co.uk is probably your best bet. So as I said, these are not new decks, but I just wanted to share them with you and just talk a little bit about them. I think this will be a pretty quick video, although I always think that, and it never is. I'm really happy to have these two. I've been looking for sort of nature-based oracle decks that had a nice balance. And I think that this is about as close as it gets. And the nice thing too is that they fit together really nicely. So I was worried when I ordered the plant oracle, because it was I think these are both published by different imprints of the same company, which is, I think the parent company is Edison Books, and then within that there are different imprints, and certainly, those are based on the countries. So in the United States, this is published by Fireside. In the UK, this is published by by Connections, but they're both sort of imprints of Edison Books. But I was worried, because even like the packages are similar, the boxes are different sizes. I was worried that the cards would be different stock and different sizes, but they're not. So that makes me really happy, because why I wanted them both was that I wanted to mix them up together, and I have done, although for the purposes of this video I separated them again. But they will, I think, be living as, one deck rather than two. But the cardstock is the same, and that makes me really happy. The only difference really sort of is that the animal is blue and the plant is green. Both of these decks come with extra cards for writing your own additions to it, although they're so I just honestly, like, unless you have sort of a really great printer, I'm always sort of like, I don't want to like contaminate a deck with my own additions to it. Although I did contaminate this one in my own way, and I'll talk about that in a sec. So both came with extra cards if you want to write additional animals or plants into it. Both of them have similar backings, as you can see. The famous Will Worthington copyright is on both sides of the back. It's not on the front, but a lot of people trim that off. I actually really like the way this deck looks in its sort of natural state, I guess, for lack of a better term. I did not put these in any order because there really isn't much of an order to them. The books list them in an order, and but you know, it's sort of it's somewhat arbitrary. So these are the two guidebooks. They don't, you know, they don't look related really. The guidebook for the Plant Oracle looks more like a book. This looks more like a guidebook, but they're good. You know, they're good. Obviously, if you're familiar with these writers, they did the Druid craft, which I don't have. That one's not calling to me for some reason, but these did, and I've been using them in consort with the Wildwood Tarot. So the books, you know, they're pretty standard guidebooks. I actually like the animal book a little bit better just because it's a little bit easier to work with. So in the guidebook, you get sort of a table at the beginning of the book with the animal name, its Gaelic name, its keywords, and the page that the book is on. The card or the description of the animal is on, and you can see that this I don't know, I can't remember. I did read the sort of introductions to each of these books, just because I was curious, and I read, you know, I've read a little bit about the cards. You know, a lot of the way the card, and the format is more or less the same for both books, although the layout looks different. This one has sort of a busier layout, although I kind of like it. So you get the name of the animal and its Celtic name, then the keywords assigned to it, a description, and then like or upright and reversed meaning, and then you get sort of a tradition or story related to the animal in the animal book. Then you get spreads in the back, and at the end of the animal book you also get another key alphabetically. So I think the layout of that book's a little more successful. This one's similar, it just doesn't have the keyword table in the front. Sorry, I'm a big breaker of book bindings. You do get a table of contents. It's still very similar. You get sort of the story of the mythology of herbalism and medicine. And then it again goes into the cards. The layout here for the cards is a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier to read. So you get the name again, it's Celtic name. It's upright and reversed keywords. So this one actually uses upright and reversed keywords. And then again, the same sort of thing of a little story about the connection of the plant, upright and reversed meanings, and then sort of a story or myth about the plant. And it does that all the way through. And then again, you get spreads, and in the back of this book, you also get the table with keywords and page numbers. But they're both well written. Now, I am not. I did not read sort of each card specifically. You know, I'm sort of interested in, as I like pull a card, I'll read through it and just sort of explore. But I'm not as actively working through this book when I use the cards. As for example, I have been with the Wildwood, and when November's over, I think I'm going to do like an Into the Wildwoods month in review, because actually it's been a really nice experience so far. Here we are 11 days in, I think. So what I did do was take these books and use them with the cards to write the keywords on the cards. Now, I don't know that you can actually... Whoa, getting really blown out there with the light. Let me reduce the exposure a bit. There we go. And again, I may need to close the blinds, which I don't want to do because it's so nice out. Here's what I'll do. I'm gonna do this for the moment. So as you can see, they're exactly the same size, and so I'm just gonna sort of pile them up here. That way I can look at one card at a time, and in fact we're gonna end up zooming in anyway, so we can do that The lighting in here today is really weird. It's so beautiful out. Well, it's cold out, but it's so like sunny and not nice out. So I guess I'm gonna get wonky lighting, but that looks okay. So what I did was I used a silver Sharpie and I wrote keywords on the cards. This is a good example actually, because if the keyword was too long, I wrote 2 for most of them, and if there wasn't room, I sort of wrote it up the side there. And I think that it's successful. I wrote it in silver so that you actually can't see it all that well. It was really sort of a ghost in a way to help me when I was using them in reading so that I didn't have to reference the guidebook. They do give you a fair amount of keywords. I chose 1 or 2 for each one that sort of resonated and provided a variety across the 2 decks. I also... where was I going with that? I really just wanted it to be like a really balanced. They give you a lot of keywords, but there's also a lot of repetition of keywords, which sort of it's like a little pet peeve of mine. Again, I like these decks. I'm just going to be honest about them. I don't know why you need 3 or 4 or 5 cards in a deck that all mean renewal. You know what I mean? I feel like for a reading, that's it's just a little silly. Now that may be the association of the plant or the animal, but still, from like a practical standpoint, and as I always say, I say this about tarot, but I think it's true of oracle decks too, that it's a functional art, right? So we need it to function and be useful. But because they gave you such a variety, it was easy. There were a couple instances where I actually adapted the keyword, either to make it fit or to add some variety or just a different shade. So, for example, in a couple cases, I chose a keyword that was similar or, that was synonymous, but wasn't exactly the same. So I'm going to walk through the 2 right now fairly quickly just so you can see them. I mean, there's a lot of videos on Will Worthington's decks. And if you haven't checked out Kelly from the Truth and Stories fangirl videos on him, it's great. But anyway, I'm really, really happy with these decks. With what I really view as the only thing about the cardstock that I dislike actually is that it gets you can't see it, but it gets super fingerprinty. But beyond that, it's good. It's not hard to shuffle. It's fairly thin, but actually like in a good way. It feels nice and stable. I traveled with this, or with the animal one anyway, earlier this week because the plant one came in while I was away. And it held up in my suitcase even because I had to throw it into my carry-on. So anyway, let's just look at the cards. So here we have the Celtic Bean, and the keywords that I chose for this were reincarnation and nourishment. These are, so the plant one is first, just because I put that on top. Excuse me. And then the animal one we'll look at. So Primrose I put love and illusion. This is Lady's Mantle, and detail and opportunity were the keywords that I chose for that. And again, the keywords come pretty much from the book. This is Mandrake, and it's wealth and madness. For the plant one in particular, I actually chose sort of disparate keywords for them because I thought that would be more interesting from a reading standpoint. This is flax, and ease and clothing were the words I wrote on this one. Yarrow was virility and masculinity. I chose that in particular because that's not a common theme for a lot of decks. There's a lot of, especially in these 2, there was a handful of things that were like goddess energy, female energy, nothing that was related specifically to masculinity or masculine energy or god energy. So I chose those keywords for that reason. There are cards that represent motherhood, particularly in the animal deck, but there was nothing that sort of represented fatherhood, for example. And I don't mean that literally, I mean that sort of as an energy. Sometimes, it's like the Emperor and the Empress energy. You need that sort of balance. So, Poppy was excess and languidness. Vervain, I chose conflict and reconciliation. This is Meadowsweet, and the keywords there were blessing and transience. Here we have garlic and the keywords. Again, there are many keywords. And let me just give you an example of what they would actually. So I chose the keywords here: flavor and protection. But what they offer in addition to that in the table in the guidebook would be purification, flavor, the exotic. Those were the upright keywords. The reversed keywords were protection, vulnerability, and discrimination. Here we have plantain for assertiveness and resilience. Now, there are a couple cards in the deck that, there are 3, I think, in this one, that are called, they're sort of collection. Yeah, there's 3. So there's the Guardians, which is this one, which includes Elder, Hawthorn, and Birch. Then there's the Banes and the Restorers, which I'll look at when we get there. But, so they're sort of collective collections. So the Guardians, I chose the keywords of immunity and longevity. Here we have Borage for forgetfulness and gladness. Wisdom, I'm sorry, this is Clover, and I chose the keywords from the Book of Wisdom and Venom to write on the card. The Cuckoo Pint, I chose union and creativity. Heather, luck and community. Here are the Restorers. Now that includes Roseroot, St. John's Wort, and Valerian. This is the only card in both decks with a human on it, and I kind of wish there weren't a human on it, but it's one. So for this one, I chose the words retreat and anxiety. So I tried to sort of give a light and shadow where that was there. This is Nettle and intuition and hidden were the keywords there. Woad, barded. I wrote the word bard there, but that's not what's in the book. It just didn't fit. So this is woad. Bardistry was the word. So sort of storytelling or weaving of tales or sort of reporting tales. And then limitation, I think, is what I wrote there. It's hard in the light now to see. But I didn't want the text. My initial instinct was I found a pen that actually works well for writing on cards that are glossy like this. It's a... let me see. It's Le Pen. Permanent and by Marvy, and it actually, because what I wanted to do was write the title underneath on the white border, and I tested maybe like 10 different markers on the extra cards, and nothing worked, including the normal things. And I've had really bad luck with the Windsor and Newton markers on cards. They smudge like crazy. They get all over my hands. I edged my medicine cards with them, and I really wish I hadn't. I may actually get a new copy of that deck because I really wish I hadn't trimmed it, and I really wish I hadn't edged it with that. So anyway, so this one actually worked really well for writing on cards like this. But then I thought, I kind of want to be able to see it, but not. So, and the Sharpie was the other thing that worked. So I chose the silver Sharpie so that, it was sort of like holographic. I could see it if I wanted to, but it could retreat if I didn't. Did I tell you what I wrote on that one? Tenacity and roots. That's Bramble. This is Ivy, and ambivalence and prophecy were the keywords there. The Banes. So the Banes are the third of the collections, and those stand for Wolfsbane, Henbane, and Hemlock. And the keywords that I chose from the book were relief and betrayal. Just to give you another sense of what they say in the book, their keywords were power, unexpected aid, relief, ill will, betrayal, and difficulty. Mint, concentration and dullness. Mugwort, protection and confusion. I actually have some mugwort right here. I went to a festival nearby, and we made... One of the things that was happening there was making smudge sticks. So this is made out of mugwort and cedar, I think, and I can't remember what the third one is. Anyway, it smells really good. Yeah, it smells great. I've gotten it everywhere. So this is Bethany for soothing discord and dispelling negativity. This is Juniper, which, you know, for those that tease me about my love affair with gin, Juniper is an ingredient in gin. But this is magic and cleansing. Chamomile, which we know from tea, for rest and guardianship. Now, how long has this been blown out? I really need to... All right, I'm going to adjust the light. In fact, I think I'm going to stop this video so that I can, because I don't know how long it's looked like that. So I'm going to stop and then come back and make sure everything looked the way it was supposed to. All right, sorry about that. I'm back. Lighting is very temperamental today. So again, this was chamomile. Fur Club Moss, I wrote, so this is going to be hard now because I can't, there's not enough light to actually see the Sharpie on it, but I wrote beginnings and power there. This is wheat, and the keywords were abundance and restlessness. So I'm not going to go through the keywords for the rest of these, just to speed this up a little bit. You know, you can obviously make them mean whatever you want, but just to sort of give you what they look like and then show you how well, you know, it works together. So this is mistletoe, burdock, harvest and attachment, fern for life force. I think that's the only thing I wrote on this one. Yeah, it is. Comfrey. That word always reminds me of a friend of mine for some reason, just because I remember him saying it in such a funny way. Agrimony. Matter, or matter. Puffball. And now we're into the animal section. So you can see how well they look together. You know, they don't, the style of art, I mean, obviously it's the same artist, but the deck itself just sort of works really nicely together. So here we have the hawk. I love this card. This is the cover of one of the editions of the deck. So here we have Earth Dragon. There are 4 dragons in this deck, which I actually considered taking out because that just felt, to have mythological animals melded with actual animals felt weird to me, and that's just sort of like, you know, it's not whatever. You know, it was just sort of, so I was going to actually take those out, but as soon as I started using it for readings for myself, they kept showing up. So I said, well, obviously this is energy I need to sort of explore. So there's 1 for each element: earth, fire, air, and water. Here's the bull, the sow, the wolf, the boar, the frog, the owl. Love this card. Who doesn't love owls? The eagle, the ram, the swan, the raven. There are a couple cards that sort of, I don't know if it's in the printing or what, but they don't quite look similar in style. They, you know, this isn't the lighting, actually. There's a couple that look a little blown out in the printing. This is one of them. This is the stag. I mean, it's beautiful, but just in terms of like the coloration and the style, there's another one too, the hind, that just, it doesn't quite look like it belongs in the deck somehow. This is goose, seal. Here's the air dragon. This is another one that looks a little bit sort of like it's from a different deck. The cat. The hare. I like that one. The blackbird. I really like that one too. Here's the fire dragon. The otter. I did write keywords on this one too. You may be able to sort of see. And they're similar. I tried across the two, because I had this one first when I came to the plant deck. I tried to sort of like add nuance and color. This is the wren, the horse, the salmon. So here's the other one, the hind. Again, the lighting in it, just I don't know if it got blown out in the printing process or what, but it doesn't look quite as pristine as the rest of them do. The crane, the the bear. Here's the water dragon. When I was a kid, we had a toy called the Silly Sea Serpent or something like that. It was a bath toy. And it didn't look anything like this, but this reminds me of a sea serpent, and so that makes me think of that toy. Here we have the adder, the cow, and the dog. I love this dog. I'm such a dog person. And then finally the fox. The fox, who has been stalking me in my readings and with the Wildwood Tarot, the Knight of Bows keeps coming up in my readings. So the fox is clear. And you know what's funny, and I'll probably talk about this again at the end of the month, is that I had been doing a lot of readings for myself last month about this job that I was applying for, and I was just sort of playing with Lenormand, and the fox card kept showing up, and I kept thinking, like, who is that? You know what I mean? And I think it might have been me. It's interesting. Anyway, so you can see that when they're together, they sort of look like they belong together. It makes a fairly chunky deck. I don't know how many cards are in each one. If the boxes actually say. They don't. The Animal Oracle has 33 animal cards. The Plant Oracle doesn't say. I think there's a few more of the plants. But, so I shuffled this together last night for a reading, and it actually shuffles together really well, and they will likely stay this way. It is a deck you have to side shuffle. I can't wrap my hands around it any other way. And in usual fashion, shuffling around a tripod is not easy. But it shuffles well. I really like the way it shuffles. It's another reason I actually don't want to trim it, because it has a very satisfying feel to it. And because so many of the cards are kind of busy, it's almost like you need the rest of the frame between them, in my opinion. You know, just in my opinion. This isn't shuffling well because, of course, I'm videoing it, but it also overhand shuffles really well. So again, I like the way it shuffles. The only problem I have with the cardstock is how much fingerprints show up on the back. That kind of drives me nuts. And I kind of like that, the blue and green, you know what I mean? Like the backs are the same. Or, I mean, the backs are different. So I'll just lay out some cards. Again, I really don't use more than one card at a time with oracles, because I've been using them kind of as prompts for a reading to sort of set the tone. There we go. You can see how well that works. There are a couple spreads. I really haven't tried them out because, again, I don't use oracle decks really, for with the exception of the Oracle of Reflections, and, like, obviously Sibylla and things like that. But for, like, an oracle deck like this, or the Sacred Visions I walked through the other day, the Halloween Oracle, I don't use them like tarot decks. I use them as sort of a one-card prompt. But just to sort of give you, I mean, and they're also really big, so it's hard to lay them out in a giant spread, but you know, they just look really nice. I really like the way this deck looks. And what's interesting to have plant and animal in the same deck together is sort of this thing of, like, the plant energy is obviously going to be a little more rooted. Oh God, a little more rooted because plants have roots. The animals aren't, and so there's like an energy and a movement to a lot of the animal cards that's not there in the plants. Although, you know, that's just sort of something to play with if you want to, obviously. So that is a look at these two, and from my opinion now, one brilliant oracle decks that I really like and have been having really good readings with. You know, so what I've been sort of doing is pulling a card or two and then using it with the Wildwood to sort of create a reading for the Into the Wild Woods stuff. So anyway, these are the plant and druid animal oracles. I'm sorry, the druid plant and animal oracles, illustrated by Will Worthington and written by Philip and Stephanie Carr-gomm. And I hope that you enjoyed watching this.